You have been reading people wrong your entire life. Not sometimes, not occasionally, every single day. And the people around you, they know it. Think about the last time someone surprised you, a friend who turned distant without warning, a colleague who smiled to your face and undercut you in the meeting, a partner who said one thing and meant something completely different. You told yourself it came out of nowhere. It did not come out of nowhere. The signals were there, the micro-expressions, the timing, the words they chose and the words they deliberately skipped. You missed all of it. And here is the part that should bother you most. You were not unlucky. You were unskilled. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that anyone who seeks to deceive will always find someone willing to be deceived. He wrote that in 1513, over 500 years later. You were still proving him right. This is not a character flaw. This is a strategic error. And strategic errors can be corrected, but only if you're willing to undergo a ruthless, surgical examination of how you see and how you have been failing to see. This is a field manual for human perception. Your weakness is not that you are too trusting or too naive. Your weakness is that you have been operating without a system. The lion does not survive because it is the most dangerous animal in the jungle. It survives because it reads the environment before it moves. You are about to become the lion. In the next few minutes, you will learn 14 sharp strategies drawn from Machiavellian power philosophy, behavioral psychology, and 5 centuries of documented human nature. Stay until strategy 14. That final principle is the one almost every self-improvement channel will never touch. Strategy 1 and 2, the gap method, words versus behavior. Most people think reading others means analyzing what they say. That is the single most expensive perceptual mistake you can make. Words are the costume. Behavior is the body underneath. Machiavelli observed princes, diplomats, soldiers, and merchants for decades. What he recorded was consistent. The most revealing information is never in the statement. It is in the discrepancy, the gap between what a person promises and what they deliver. The gap between their stated values and their actual choices, the gap between the emotion they perform and the action they take immediately afterward. Think of someone in your life who has disappointed you. Did they behave inconsistently with who they claimed to be? Or did they behave perfectly consistently with who they had always shown themselves to be? The answer is almost always the second one. You just were not watching the behavior column. Start a mental gap ledger. For every person who matters in your life, track 2 columns, what they say and what they do. Give it 30 days. The gap between those columns is their true character written in permanent ink. Notice the speed of behavior change. Genuine character is slow to shift. When someone's behavior toward you accelerates in warmth or coldness without a clear external cause, something shifts in their internal calculation of your value. Find out what changed. Watch what they do when there is no audience. How a person treats a waiter, a subordinate, or someone who can do nothing for them is not a personality quirk. It is a classified document. Read it. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Machiavelli, watch what people over-explain. Watch what they get defensively quiet about. The gap lives in both. Strategy 3. Status anxiety. Every single person you meet is running a status calculation inside their head. Constantly. Automatically. Without stopping. Are they above me or below me? Am I gaining or losing ground? Do they respect me or see through me? This is not a character flaw of weak people. This is evolutionary architecture. The brain's threat detection system cannot distinguish between physical danger and social demotion. Both activate the same neurological alarm. The result? Status anxiety leaks everywhere. It leaks in how people respond to compliments directed at someone else. It leaks in the speed and tone of their interruptions. It leaks in anxious name-dropping, deployed the moment they feel themselves being evaluated. Watch the reaction to other people's wins. A genuine smile reaches the eyes and comes slightly late. A status threat response is immediate, controlled, and often followed by a pivot to the self. That is great, and actually that pivot is not rudeness, that is anxiety in motion. Deploy strategic self-deprecation as a detection tool. Briefly and casually diminish one of your own accomplishments in conversation. Someone with genuine security will laugh or move on. Someone running a status competition will agree with you, sometimes even amplify the diminishment. That agreement is the tell. They needed you lower to feel stable. Notice the topics they never engage with. What subjects does someone consistently redirect, minimize, or mock? That dismissal is almost never indifference. It is the defensive maneuver of someone who fears being exposed as inadequate in that domain. Strategy 4. Covert contracts. You know what a covert contract is, even if you have never heard the term. It is the moment someone does something generous for you, and you feel the weight of it. Not gratitude, weight. Because something in you knows, this is not a gift. This is an invoice waiting to be submitted. Covert contracts are unspoken, unilateral agreements. One person decides internally, I will do X for you, and in return, you will give me Y. They never tell you about why, they just wait. And when why does not arrive, the resentment surfaces as something unrelated, a coldness, a criticism, a sudden withdrawal. Listen for investment language disguised as generosity. Phrases like, after everything I have done, I always show up for you, and I never ask for anything, are ledger entries, not observations. Someone genuinely giving without expectation does not keep an inventory. Test the covert contract by declining graciously. When someone offers help that feels slightly too eager, decline politely and observe the response. Genuine generosity accepts the decline without residue. A covert contract reveals itself through a flicker of displeasure, quickly masked but present. Audit your own covert contracts. Where in your life are you giving with a hidden expectation attached? Your unspoken resentments are your own unauthorized invoices. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Machiavelli was not endorsing cruelty. He was diagnosing the danger of performing warmth without strategic clarity. Your job is to know the difference between love built on obligation and love built on genuine respect in others and in yourself. Strategy 5. Information asymmetry. Information asymmetry is the condition in which one party holds more relevant knowledge than the other, and both parties know an imbalance exists, but neither knows exactly how large it is. That uncertainty is the active ingredient. Machiavelli built his entire analytical framework on this principle. His most enduring strategic insight was not about force, it was about knowledge of architecture. Who knows what? Who knows what you know? Who assumes you know less than you do? Never reveal the ceiling of your knowledge. In any consequential conversation, demonstrate competence without exhausting your inventory. Let the other person underestimate the depth of what you know. That underestimation is a strategic asset. Ask questions to which you already know the answers. When you already know the answer and ask anyway, you are not gathering information. You are evaluating honesty, consistency, and the precise shape of someone's self-narrative. Note every point at which their story and reality diverge. Control what you reveal and when. Information released too early loses leverage. The skill is in the timing, releasing information at the moment when it serves your understanding, rather than their management of their self-image. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Machiavelli. Extend this. The first method for reading anyone is to examine the information environment they choose to inhabit. Strategy 6. The shadow self. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Machiavelli called it the hidden nature that circumstances eventually force into the light. Both were describing the same thing, the parts of a person's identity they have buried because those parts were deemed unacceptable. Buried does not mean gone. The shadow drives behavior from underground. The person who rages at laziness in others is almost always suppressing their own desire to stop. The person who obsessively attacks dishonesty in public life is often managing private shame about their own deceptions. The person who performs relentless selflessness is frequently suppressing a deep hunger for recognition. Notice disproportionate reactions. When someone responds to a minor provocation with major emotional energy, the minor provocation is not the real subject. Ask, what does this topic represent for them beyond its literal content? Listen for absolute moral language. When someone uses never, always, everyone, no one in moral declarations, they are often constructing a wall against their own shadow. The more absolute the language, the more compressed the internal pressure. Track what topics they return to uninvited. The shadow broadcasts its location through obsessive return. When someone brings up the same theme across different conversations and contexts, that recurring theme is a shadow coordinate. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed. Unresolved wounds do not disappear. They accumulate, compound, and are expressed often sideways, often toward someone who had nothing to do with the original injury. Your task is to understand the full architecture of who you are dealing with, especially in high-stakes relationships. Strategy 7. The 4 primal engines. Every behavior you have ever witnessed is traceable to one of 4 primal motivational engines. Once you identify which engine is running in a person, their behavior becomes almost entirely predictable. Engine 1. Significance. The need to matter, to be seen as valuable or irreplaceable. This runs the most visible leadership behavior, most performative generosity, and most competitive aggression. Engine 2. Security. The need to be safe, financially, socially, emotionally. This runs most risk aversion, most loyalty behavior, and the aggression that surfaces when change is imposed. Engine 3. Connection. The need to belong, to be known and accepted. People with a dominant connection drive will sacrifice their values before they sacrifice their relationships. Engine 4. Autonomy. The need to be free from external control. This runs the most resistance, most rebellion, and most creative energy that cannot survive inside rigid structures. Identify the dominant engine through preference language. Significance-dominant people use language about impact, legacy, and recognition. Security-dominant people use language about risk and stability. Connection-dominant people use language about loyalty and belonging. Autonomy-dominant people use language about freedom and resistance to being told what to do. Watch what someone volunteers to sacrifice first. Dominant engines are protected. Secondary engines are the first things abandoned under pressure. A prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise. People break commitments when keeping them threatens their dominant engine. If you know the engine, you can accurately predict which commitments will hold and which will fracture. Strategy 8. Behavioral deception analysis. The body is not a liar. The mind constructs the narrative. The words execute the strategy. But the body registers what is true before the narrative can cover it. Deception is cognitively expensive. Maintaining a false narrative consumes working memory, and when working memory is under strain, the body leaks. Cluster 1. Temporal displacement. When someone is telling the truth, their language and body move together in time. Under deception, there is often a fractional delay, a slight pause before gesture, a lag between statement and emotional expression. The emotional response comes after the words instead of arriving with them. Cluster 2. Reduction of expressive range. Under deceptive load, people unconsciously reduce body movement. Gestures become smaller. Physical presence contracts. This is the body conserving cognitive resources for narrative management. Cluster 3. Overcompensation in specific channels. When someone consciously controls their face, their feet and hands betray them. When they control their hands, their voice pitch shifts. The deception signal migrates. It is always somewhere. Watch the entire instrument, not just the face. Establish a behavioral baseline first. Spend the first 5 minutes of any important interaction in low-stakes conversation. Watch how the person moves and pauses when they have nothing to protect. Then introduce the consequential topic and measure the delta. Ask for elaboration in detail. The truthful person adds detail freely. They are retrieving a memory. The person managing a constructed narrative experiences increased cognitive load when asked to elaborate. Watch for hesitation, increased self-touching, or sudden precision on irrelevant details while remaining vague on central ones. Strategy 9. The cut question. Here is a question that functions like a scalpel. It does not attack, it does not accuse, but it cuts through the narrative to the structural truth beneath. Apply it silently, internally, every time you receive information that does not fully cohere. What would have to be true for this story to be accurate? If someone tells you a story in which they are the consistent victim of a pattern, every employer unfair, every relationship partner unreasonable, every opportunity blocked by external forces, ask the cut question internally. What would have to be true for this pattern to be externally generated rather than internally driven? The answer almost always illuminates the shadow self. Map the consistent protagonist. In every story someone tells over time, note the position they occupy. Are they always acted upon? Always misunderstood? Consistent narrative position is not coincidence. It is a perceptual filter revealing how someone has organized their identity around a specific self-story. Notice what is absent from the narrative. Constructed narratives often have conspicuous gaps. Moments where the story jumps forward without accounting for a logical interim. That absence is frequently the most important data point. Apply the cut question to your own narratives. Where are you, the consistent protagonist? Where do your stories require the rest of the world to have acted in coordinated, improbable ways for your version to be accurate? This is not a self-attack. This is the ruthless self-examination that separates those who grow from those who cycle. Strategy 10. Reading the sophisticated concealer. Most people are relatively easy to read once you have the framework. But some people have cultivated, through practice, discipline, or early survival necessity, the ability to present a clean exterior while operating complex internal strategies. Here is the truth. The more carefully someone has constructed their presentation, the more revealing the seams become when you know where to look. Look for perfect consistency as a flag, not a positive sign. Real human beings are slightly inconsistent. Perfect tonal consistency across varied circumstances is not equanimity, it is management. And managed behavior develops observable patterns of transition between states. Watch who they are most careful around. The sophisticated concealer modulates behavior based on threat level. The person they treat most attentively is either their primary threat vector or their primary target. Either classification is important information. Time is the ultimate variable. Even skilled concealers cannot fully control. Sustained high-stakes situations deplete cognitive bandwidth. The mask does not fall dramatically. It simply becomes slightly less consistent. A micro-expression surfaces in a moment of fatigue. Patience is the most undervalued perceptual tool available. Your performance runtime is longer than theirs. Strategy 11. Alliance mapping. There is intelligence available in every relationship you are trying to understand that most people completely overlook. The intelligence is not in the person. It is in their network. Map the function of each relationship. Who provides validation? Who provides information? Who provides status elevation? Who provides emotional regulation? The person serving each function tells you what the central figure cannot generate internally. Identify the missing relationship types. No one who challenges them directly. No one who holds significantly different perspectives. No one who requires them to give without receiving. Each absence is a window into what they find psychologically intolerable. Observe how they describe people they are no longer close to. Do they speak with nuance, acknowledging complexity and mutual contribution to the breakdown, or do they deliver a clean narrative in which the other party bears all responsibility? That narrative pattern will eventually be applied to you. Strategy 12. Timing intelligence. Most people analyze content. Almost nobody analyzes timing. This is a critical perceptual gap. The identical sentence means entirely different things depending on when it is delivered. "I am proud of you," said immediately after an achievement as an emotional response. The same sentence, said 3 days later, After a visible demonstration of your value in a public setting is a recalibration, someone adjusting their stated regard to match newly revealed information. Both sound the same. Neither means the same thing. Note the delay between event and response. What happened during that interval? What did they need to process, consult, or decide before responding? Watch for information-triggered behavior shifts. When someone's behavior toward you shifts immediately after they receive new information about your status or capability, you have just identified a transactional relationship dressed as an unconditional one. Use timing deliberately in your own communication. When you respond immediately to everything, you eliminate your perceptual advantage. Deliberate calibrated timing is not rudeness. It is the assertion that you process before reacting. Strategy 13. The steel self-narrative. You cannot read others clearly from a distorted internal landscape. The limits of your perception of others are always, precisely, the limits of your self-knowledge. Where you have unexamined shame, you will misread others' behavior around that topic. Where you have unexamined hunger for significance, for validation, you will be strategically exploitable. Not because you are weak, because you are predictable. Write the objective case file on yourself. List your 5 most consistent behavioral patterns, the ones that appear across different relationships and contexts. Be forensic, not harsh, not charitable. Accurate. What do these patterns reveal about your dominant engine, your shadow, and your covert contracts? Identify your narrative identity distortions. Where do you cast yourself as exclusively a victim? Where do you cast yourself as exclusively capable? Both distortions make you readable. The person who knows they sometimes fail is harder to manipulate through fear of failure. Update the case file regularly. Self-knowledge is not a destination. It is a living document. Accurate self-reading requires continuous revision, not a fixed identity crystallized at a moment of past insight. Strategy 14. The fox-lion synthesis. This is the principle that ties the entire framework together. Machiavelli's most famous metaphor is the fox and the lion. The fox is intelligent, perceptive, adaptive, and fast. It reads terrain, detects traps, and operates through information advantage. The lion is direct, powerful, committed, and clear. It does not flinch once a decision is made. Machiavelli's insight was that neither is sufficient alone. The fox without the lion's resolve is perpetually strategic but never decisive. It reads everyone but trusts no one, including itself. It accumulates intelligence and converts none of it into committed action. The lion without the fox's perception is decisive but blind. It acts with full commitment on inaccurate readings of reality and mistakes emotional certainty for perceptual accuracy. The fox-lion integration is the strategic objective of this entire framework. The lion brings commitment to self-knowledge, the willingness to act on what the ruthless internal audit reveals. Not someday, now. The lion brings acceptance of uncertainty. The fox can always find more data. The lion knows when the data is sufficient and moves. Perfecting your reading of others at the expense of acting on what you already clearly understand is not strategy. It is avoidance with intellectual decoration. The lion brings accountability without self-destruction. When the fox's reading proves wrong, and sometimes it will, the lion does not collapse. It updates, it revises, it re-engages with corrected intelligence and moves again. Establish a weekly perceptual review. Dedicate 20 minutes each week to reviewing your key interactions. Where did your reading prove accurate? Where did it miss? What behavioral signal did you overlook and why? This is not self-recrimination. This is the ongoing calibration of a precision instrument. Act on your clearest reads within 48 hours. When your perceptual system delivers a clear signal, cross-referenced against your own shadow and self-narrative, act on it within 48 hours. Clarity accessed and not acted upon becomes self-doubt within a week. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Machiavelli, you do not become one or the other. You become both. Machiavelli, you do not become one or the other. You become both. Here is what changed for you if you stayed with this. You entered operating on incomplete perceptual software, reading words instead of gaps, missing status signals, entering covert contracts you never saw arriving, operating with information asymmetry working against you. You leave with 14 specific deployable strategies: the gap method, status anxiety reading, covert contract detection, information asymmetry architecture, shadow integration, primal driver mapping, behavioral deception analysis, the cut question, sophisticated concealer identification, alliance mapping, timing intelligence, the Steele self-narrative, strategic opacity, and the Fox-Lion synthesis. But hear this clearly. Knowledge does not transform anything. Deployment does. The person who watches this and returns to their life unchanged has not gained a framework. They have consumed content. Those are not the same thing. The person who takes one strategy, just one, and applies it to the next consequential conversation, that person begins to operate differently within 72 hours. The cost of not applying this is the same as the cost of never having learned it. Another missed signal, another covert contract you did not see coming, another situation in which someone else held the perceptual advantage, and you did not even know the game was being played. Here is what to do right now. Subscribe to this channel. This is building a systematic curriculum on self-mastery and strategic clarity that goes further than anything else in this space. Write Fox-Lion in the comments, not as a slogan, as a commitment. As the articulation of what you are building, the integration of perception and decisive action, the fox and the lion operating as one. And go back to strategy 1, the gap method, and apply it to one relationship in your life before midnight tonight. Just one gap ledger, just one relationship, 2 columns, 30 days. That single practice will do more for your perceptual development than re-watching this video 5 times. Machiavelli wrote 500 years ago that fortune favors the prepared, not the talented, not the fortunate, the prepared. You have the preparation now. Use it.